Within witchcraft, the casting of a circle and the laying of a compass are two very powerful techniques for magical practice. But which one is most suitable for you? My name is Hearth, and today we're going to be talking about the differences between an energetic circle casting, a Wiccan circle casting, and a compass round to figure out which is right for you. This topic can get rather confusing, especially when you aren't really sure what you're looking for. There's so much information out there about magical circles. How do you know what's right for you and what isn't? Everything that I'm talking about in this video is coming from my own experiences. And every practitioner and every tradition is going to be slightly different, so do make sure that you do your research to figure out the right technique that's suitable for you and your tradition. We're going to start today's video talking about circle casting. This is a topic that most people will have at least heard of, even if they've never practiced it for themselves. Now, a circle casting is found within both secular witchcraft as well as within Wiccan practice, and it's going to vary in style depending on how religious you are, how ceremonial you are, and the kind of style and extra flair that you want to add into your practice. But I've found that there are two basic forms of circle casting, and those are the ones we're going to be talking about today. Now, in both of these traditions, both witchcraft and Wicca, a circle is typically cast for the same reasons. The first is that it acts as temporary sacred space, this being a space that is slightly altered from the world around it. It is a place where you can cast your spells and rituals, where you can do your divination, and it's seen as a place of other. It is sacred, special, different, and it can help us not only get into the right mindset, but it's also primed for us to do our spells and rituals. It's also a space that is protected from unwanted energies and spirits. This is really useful if you're doing meditation or divination and you don't want to be disturbed by external factors, and it also means that you can cast a circle and undertake spellwork and ritual in a place even if you aren't familiar with it, and even if you don't have any personal or spiritual protections surrounding that space. It gives you an extra layer of protection when you're doing spells and rituals. The third reason is that it can act as energetic containment. Now, this might sound a little counterintuitive, but it can be really useful if you're just getting started and you aren't used to working with energy yet. It can also be really useful if you want your spell to have more oomph and you don't want your energy to be dissipating over time. Instead, you want to send it out all in one go. It's also really useful if you don't want to release that energy at all. Instead, you want to contain the energy that you're raising so that you can send it into an object, such as when we enchant a bag or a piece of jewelry. You don't want that energy floating off into the ether, you want it in the object. And so by casting a circle, it allows you to contain that energy so that you can push it all into the object that you want to charge or enchant with your energy. There are many reasons why people will cast a circle. Those are probably the most popular. There are many different ways that people will cast circles, and how they do it is very much going to depend on their own religion, their tradition, how ceremonial they are, but I found that typically they fit into two categories. The first is a very simple energy-based circle casting. It has no ceremony and it doesn't contain any items unless you choose to add them. The second is a more ceremonial, more Wiccan style of circle casting that contains a little bit more ceremonial flair. Both of them are really useful. What you choose to use on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis is really going to vary. And you may find that the more ceremonial style of circle casting is better for certain circumstances, and the more energetic style is better for others. So we're going to start by talking about energetic circles. The energy circle casting is as simple as it sounds. It's a circle that has been cast with your energy. Now, for this technique, ideally you're going to want to know how to center and ground your energy, and I do have a full in-depth video on how to carry out this circle casting that I will leave in the description box. But the basic idea of it is that either by yourself or with a group, you will gather your energy and you will focus on pushing it out into a bubble that surrounds you. You can make the energetic bubble as big or as small as you need it to be. Ideally, with a group, you might want to have some kind of edging to your circle, just so everyone knows where it is and no one's accidentally going to step out of it. The bubble that's created is going to depend on your circumstances. It can be an entire room or just around the altar that's in front of you. And through the duration of your spell, ritual, or divination, this bubble is going to help contain energy, and it's going to help protect from harm from external forces, especially things like unwanted energies, as well as spirits that you might not want to influence your spell, ritual, or divination. When you're done with your spell, you can drop this circle. This can be done in many different ways. Some people will visualize it as popping a bubble, watching it explode around you. Other people will pull it apart like they're pulling apart bars. Other people will draw that energy back into themselves and then return it to the earth again. The kind of technique that you use is going to very much vary, so try different techniques, see what works best for you. This style of circle casting could be good for someone who doesn't really like ceremony, who isn't a follower of the Wiccan tradition, or someone who wants something very simple and temporary. It's quick, it's easy, the more you practice it, the quicker it will be. So even if the first few times you do it, it might take you 5-10 minutes, by the end, you're just going to be able to snap your fingers and a bubble is up and you're protected. It's really great for temporary, short-term, non-ceremonial protective circles. The other really common form of circle casting is what I would consider to be a Wiccan circle casting. It is at least more Wiccan in nature, and it's the one that I carried out when I was part of Wiccan circles, and also one that I undertook as a Wiccan solo practitioner. This is something that is going to vary coven to coven, Wiccan tradition to Wiccan tradition, so just bear that in mind. Make sure you do your research to figure out which one is right for your specific tradition. But typically, these kind of circle castings are more ceremonial in nature, they might contain more objects, and they might be better for larger groups of people, especially when you're working with 20 or more people. This kind of circle casting is typically easier to manage as there's less wayward energy. This kind of circle casting also involves more items. So often there would be representations for the elements, there may be representations of the god and the goddess, or simply one deity, or maybe even spirits, depending on what you're working with. There may also be edgings to that circle, so things such as cord, salt if you're inside, sand if you're outside, to mark the edge of that circle so everyone knows where the border is. Now, to start this circle, you would typically walk the perimeter. So I would typically walk it clockwise or diasil, and I would walk it 3 times. This starts the process of marking that space out as being sacred, as being other. When you're doing this, you're building your energy, you're raising your energetic circle, and you're starting to pull it up above you. When you feel like the energetic circle is in place, it's then time to carry out the more ritual work. So typically you would then go about calling the quarters. Now this is a process where you face in each of the cardinal directions and you would call forth the guardians and the energies of that direction to aid you in your magical practice. Now this can be done in many ways. Probably the most traditional way is to have some form of representation at each cardinal direction. So typically within Wicca, it is north, south, east, and west. North represents the earth, south the fire, east air, and water the west. And when you're doing this, you'll have a representation at each of these cardinal directions. So it could be a candle in a particular colour. So for earth, it would be green. For fire, it would be red. For air, it would be yellow. And for water, it would be blue. You may instead want to have an item that represents it. So for instance, for earth, it could be a cup of sand or dirt or maybe a stone. For fire, it could be a candle. For air, it could be a feather or incense. And then for water, it could be a cup of water. Some people will also have representations for the spirit element. This is often a purple candle, as well as for the god and the goddess. So this could be a gold and silver candle. It could be an image of a god and an image of a goddess. It's really going to depend on your tradition. When you're calling in the quarters or you're calling in the watchtowers, it's traditional to work around the circle in a clockwise motion. So I always started from the north. So I would go north, east, south, west, and I would work that way. And that's just how I always did it. Depending on your tradition, it might vary. When you've called in the guardians of the quarters, you would then call in the god, goddess, spirit, or any entities that you wanted to work with, and then you would carry out your spell and ritual inside. When you were done, you would typically give thanks. You might want to give an offering to the different elements and the energies that are involved. This could be libations of food and drink. This could be energy that you are giving to them, and you would then undo your circle casting. So you would start by sending away any spirits, gods, and goddesses that you might have brought forth. So you would give thanks and then you would release them, and then you would go through the elements and the quarters. So you would work backwards. So if the last element that you called forward was the west and water, you would start there, and then you would go anti-clockwise or widdershins, and you would undo everything that you've done in order. So you would give thanks and release the water element, the fire element, the air element, and then the earth element. and then you would walk your circle with a shins or anti-clockwise to undo that energy that you have woven into the earth. And then when you're done, you might want to have some food and some drink, as it can be really energy draining, especially if you've used a lot of your own energy. So that is a different variety of circle casting, and as you can see, it is far more time consuming, it takes a lot more items, there's a lot more ceremony there, and it's not necessarily going to be for everyone. Now, depending on your tradition, you may well combine these two practices together, and there are many people within the Wiccan tradition who maybe only do this ceremonial style of practice when it is the Esbats or the Sabbats. Maybe it's something they only do on big celebrations and not every single day when it comes to their magical practice. Now, how often you cast a circle is going to depend on what you feel comfortable with. Some people will cast a circle every single time they do spell work and ritual. Other people will only do it when they feel uncomfortable or they don't want to be disturbed by other energies. So they might not cast a circle in their own home when they have their own protections up, but they might cast a circle when they're out in the middle of the woods and they don't necessarily know the kind of spirits and energies that are around. It might be that when they're doing meditation they cast a circle, but when they're doing divination they don't. It's very flexible, there's no one size fits all when it comes to circle castings. So test it out, see what works, see what doesn't, see what you feel comfortable with and what you don't, and then make your own practice from there. There is, however, another practice that commonly gets confused for circle casting, but it's actually very different. That being laying a compass. Now, laying a compass is found within traditional witchcraft, and there are many different varieties of it. Different paths are going to have different techniques. So as mentioned, the one in this video is going to be the one that I personally follow and practice. So it's also known as laying the round or ploughing the furrow, depending on the tradition. And it's a practice that creates a space of otherness and in-between. It's known as the wood between the worlds. It's essentially a transient liminal space that you are creating for your magical practice. And that's the main difference between casting a circle and laying a compass. Although a compass can be protective, and although it can be sacred space, it isn't going to act in the same way as a circle will, because a circle's purpose is to contain what is inside. It protects what's inside, it stops the energy from being released from inside, and it creates essentially a safe bubble of space. A compass, on the other hand, opens you up to energies in 6 different directions. It opens you up to energies of the 4 cardinal directions and their elemental correspondences, spirits and energies, but also the energies of the worlds both above and below. It creates essentially a 6-way crossroads that allows you to connect with powerful spiritual forces from other planes of existence. And so although you can use it in a similar way to a circle, you're probably going to get very different results. However, laying a compass, as with circle casting, can vary from very simplistic to very complex. And how you go about doing it is very much going to depend on what you want out of it. Probably the simplest way to lay a compass is to walk the perimeter of it, usually in a clockwise or deersil motion. Now, you can do this as many times as you want, but repetition is incredibly powerful. Some people will also say words or speak incantations as they do this, and others will enter into a trance-like state. The act of walking the edge of the compass delineates it. It separates it from our world and gives it an otherworldly feel. It begins to open up that connection between our realm and the realm of others, the realm of spirits. And this form of compass laying, when you feel comfortable and ready, you can sit or stand within its center, and you can carry out astral projection, meditation, trance work, journeying, and it allows you to have an easier access to other realms, to the astral realms. It can allow you to receive and send messages easier, and it allows you to communicate with familiars, servitors, other spirits, deities, etc. This is a very, very simple form of compass round, and it isn't something that everyone is necessarily going to follow, but if you do want to work with a compass round within your traditional witchcraft practice and you don't necessarily have all the time in the world, this could be a really good starting technique. You then get onto the more complicated, more full-bodied forms of laying a compass. These are the forms that are most commonly used within traditional witchcraft, though you will of course find variations of them. Now, to lay a compass in this way, you might want a few tools. the most common of which being a stang. Now, a stang is a long piece of wood that usually has a prong at the top that makes it look like a Y. This is a traditional tool within traditional witchcraft and is often used within the laying of a compass, as well as acting as an altar when you are out and about, because largely traditional witchcraft is cast outside of the home in wild places or at least natural environments. The stang acts as a representation of the horned god, and it also acts as an altar within that ritual space. Now, you may also want a cord, a cup, a blade. Now, of course, do not take blades out and about with you, but they are used within traditional witchcraft practices in some versions of it, including the use of a sword, but once again, don't take those out and about. You may also want to take a besom out with you, which is another name for a broomstick. You're also going to want to take some kind of libation. This could be something like bread and wine, something that you yourself can consume, but that you can also give to the energies around. Another useful tool is also a compass, as it's going to give you an idea of which directions you're going to be facing. Now, when you're ready to do your compass round or the laying of a compass, you would want to walk the edge of your circle, clockwise or diasil, with your stang. And by doing this, you are once again delineating that space, you are separating it from the mundane world, creating something other. Now, it's really important with compass laying that you are doing your energy work. So as with an energetic circle casting, you are raising that energy up around you. You are creating essentially a column around you that's going to go all the way up and all the way down. And it's going to give you essentially a lift or an elevator, if you're in America, that is going to allow energies to come from here, there, everywhere, from other planes, up and below. It's essentially going to create a hotspot or a crossroads that you're going to be working within. When you feel like you're ready and you've walked the compass round enough, you are then going to come into the center, and this is where you're going to start working with the elements. Now, when it comes to a compass round, it's quite different from working with a Wiccan circle casting, because instead of bringing the elements to us, we are going to the elements. It's essentially a tool that allows us to traverse and walk different realms of existence. It allows us to connect with different energies by going to them instead of bringing them to us. Now, as you're opening the doorways to these elements, the directions that you choose does vary from Wiccan practice. And that's because within traditional witchcraft, the elemental directions are based on where you are in the world and what you have around you. So as an example, if it's really warm to the north of you, then maybe north would be fire. If the wind primarily comes from the south, then maybe the south is air. If you have a vast body of water to your east, then maybe water would be east. Really adapt the directions to suit what it is that you have in your environment, and it can be a good way of connecting more deeply to the elemental associations. Of course, some trial and error is probably involved here, but give it a go and see what works. When that is done, you can then reach above and below. The stang is traditionally placed into the earth, and it represents the axis, the point that connects the above to the middle to the below. And it allows us to work not only with the elemental planes, but also with the higher and lower planes as well. These entryways are then opened, allowing us to have a 6-way crossroads that allows us to really strongly connect with these powerful spiritual energies. Now, although you can add protections to your circle, you would maybe want to place iron or other protective items around the edge of your circle. Ultimately, when it comes to laying a compass and working with it, you are connecting and traversing spiritual planes with your actions. So it might be a good place to carry out your astral projection, your meditation, your divination, your journeying, your trance work. It's a good place if you want to connect with and commune with different spirits, draw them into your spells and rituals, ask for aid. It's a really good time and place to do that. When you're done with your spell, ritual, divination, or astral projection, it's then a good idea to give some kind of offering or libation. You haven't summoned any of these energies to be within your space. If they're there because they've chosen to be. And so now is a good time to not only have some food and drink yourself, but also to offer some as a libation to the energies and the spirits that are around. Another difference from a Wiccan circle casting is that when it comes to laying a compass, you aren't dismissing any spirits or energies. Because you've not summoned anything into your space, you acknowledge that all of the elements are around us all of the time, and so you can't necessarily dismiss them the same way you would within a Wiccan circle casting. Instead, you simply have a closing statement. You let everyone know within that working that you are done, that it is complete and over, thank you very much for your help, and then that's it. There's no dismissal of the spirits and energies because those spirits and energies are around you always. All you did was open up the pathway to their communication. That's all. Anything else was a very mutual thing, and that's what the libation or that offering is for. Now, you can decide to just walk away from that compass, especially if it is in a space that you are not going to visit, that is very unusual for people to visit. You can simply leave it and let the energy dissipate over time because it isn't storing that energy like a circle casting would. But I would personally dismantle that energy, and I would do this by working widdershins or anti-clockwise, walking back around with my stang so that I can make sure that I clear away any of that energy, just so I'm not disrupting any of the other spirits, energies, or people that might be in and around that space, especially other practitioners. You are, in effect, walking back down into the mundane physical world. You can almost see it as walking down a set of stairs. You are undoing that sacredness, that otherness, and you are returning it back to a mundane place and time. Because when we lay a compass, we are essentially taking it out of time and space. It is an area that is between worlds. It is neither mundane nor magical. It is neither here nor there. It's everywhere. It's both. It's all. And so it allows us to have that deep connection with both the elements, but also with the higher and lower worlds, which makes laying a compass such a wonderful practice. But with that all being said, when would you lay a compass? Because although it is common for people who follow a traditional witchcraft path to lay compasses, how often do you do it? Is it every time? Is it sometimes? And that's really going to vary depending on the person. Many people will carry out their spells, their rituals without laying a compass unless they really need one. Unless they need that connection with the other world, they want aid with an astral projection, they want to commune with familiars or servitors or spirits, unless they need the benefits that the compass round offers them, then they aren't probably going to lay one. Whereas some practitioners are going to lay a compass round every single time, and it's something that they're dedicated to doing all of the time. It's just a part of their tradition. As with circle casting, there's no one size fits all. Some people will do different varieties, so some people who lay compasses may also use energetic circle castings. Sometimes they don't need either of the above, and they'll just do their workings without one. You'll often find that different people are going to have different techniques, and so if you were to ask 12 traditional witches, they'd probably give you 13 different answers. So with that being said, I know that this video was a lot, but I hope that you did get a little bit of information out of that. I hope it's a bit easier to differentiate between a circle casting and a laying the compass, because I do get asked this a lot, and I think there is a lot of confusion. So with that being said, I hope that you did enjoy this video. What do you yourself use? Do you use circle castings? If so, which technique? If you lay a compass, is the technique that you use different to mine? Is it similar? I would love to know. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, or just want to chit chat with the community, feel free to post it down in the comment section. And if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. It is completely free and I would really appreciate it. And with that being said, I hope you have a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! On them, so that if you're interested in the compass round, if you're interested... Did I just say interested in two different ways? Interested. Interested. That's not right. Interested. These are the kind of conversations I have with myself. Wow, I've gone so yellow. Will that fix it? The answer? Oh, kind of. Kind of? I'm not sure, honestly, and I have noticed that, oh, shake to send feedback. Why? What? No. Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, we're talking I am illuminated from below. Oh, turn my brightness all the way down. There we go, that's better. I did have a few videos where I realised that I was like glowing from below, and it's because I keep forgetting to turn the brightness on my iPad down, and it's like, I'm going to tell you a scary story, and I've got to remember, like, chill. Like, we are not in, like, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like, chill with the screen brightness, otherwise I look like I should be casting spells over a bubbling cauldron. And actually it's like, no, you're talking to yourself. Okay, you are talking to yourself, and then you're going to spend 15 hours editing you talking to yourself. Like, chill.